They say Rastafari began in Jamaica, but the truth runs far deeper. From secret Ethiopian hills to hidden Brazilian favelas, some nations have become unexpected kingdoms of dreadlocks and prophecy. You won't believe which country burns the strongest Rasta flame today. Stay till the end. The final revelation will change how you see Rastafari forever. Ethiopia remains the living pulse of the Rastafarian movement, the holy land that gave form and direction to the faith. It is not seen merely as a country, but as the physical manifestation of prophecy. To the Rastafarian, Ethiopia stands as the eternal symbol of divine royalty, the throne of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. The land's connection to the Solomonic dynasty links ancient African royalty with biblical promise, bridging the story of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon with the destiny of Black redemption. Every Rasta prayer, every Nyabingi drumbeat carries the echo of that covenant. For many, Ethiopia's mountains are the true Zion, a reminder that the liberation of the African spirit begins with remembering its roots. Even as the modern nation navigates the pressures of globalization, its spiritual identity remains unshaken. Ethiopia is not just history to Rastafari. It is home, the place where prophecy lives and consciousness awakens. South Africa stands as another pillar in this evolving story, a land forged through resistance and rebirth. Rastafarian presence in South Africa grew out of the soil of struggle, shaped by the memory of apartheid and the resilience of those who refused to bow. The Rasta communities of Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban have long carried the fire of defiance, blending ancient spirituality with the modern cry for equality. For them, Babylon was never an abstract idea. It was the face of apartheid itself. The teachings of Haile Selassie and Marcus Garvey found new resonance in the townships, where reggae became both rhythm and revolution. Through song, art, and protest, Rastafarians in South Africa turned oppression into a language of freedom. Today, they stand as cultural educators, healers, and voices of moral guidance, reminding the youth that emancipation is not only political, it is spiritual. To live as a Rasta in South Africa is to walk with the memory of Mandela while holding firm to the divine order of Zion. Jamaica remains the cradle where the Rastafarian flame first blazed into the world's consciousness. The hills of St. Anne, the villages of Spanish Town, and the yards of Kingston became sacred grounds where prophecy met rhythm. Here, the Rastaman's reasoning, the beating of the Nyabingi drum, and the smoke of the chalice all came together to give birth to a spiritual revolution that would echo across the globe. Through reggae music and the voice of prophets like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Burning Spear, Jamaica's Rastafari transformed struggle into song and faith, into freedom. Every dreadlock, every idle meal, every chant of one love carries the story of a people rising from chains to consciousness. The Jamaican Rasta remains the messenger of unity, proclaiming that Babylon may rule nations, but Zion rules the soul. In every generation, the Rasta spirit continues to awaken hearts, teaching self-reliance, moral integrity, and divine love. In Brazil, the story takes on a different rhythm, but beats with the same African heart. In Bahia, São Luís, and Rio de Janeiro, the spirit of Rastafari mingles with the legacy of candomblé, capoeira, and samba. The Rasta presence here is inseparable from the Afro-Brazilian struggle for identity and cultural dignity. Through the rhythm of drums and the rituals of remembrance, Brazil's Rastafarians celebrate the survival of Africa in the Americas. They see Haile Selassie as a symbol of restored pride, and reggae becomes their vessel of protest against social inequality. The favelas and coastal villages echo with the message that blackness is not a burden, but a blessing. Rastafari in Brazil unites the spiritual with the social teaching that freedom begins with self-knowledge and cultural remembrance. In every beat of their music and every step of their resistance, they honor the unbroken bond between Africa and her scattered children. In the United Kingdom, the Rastafarian journey unfolded among the Caribbean diaspora, who arrived in search of opportunity but found exclusion and prejudice. In the neighborhoods of Brixton, Birmingham, and Manchester, Rastafari became more than a faith. It became survival. It gave identity to a generation of young Black Britons who felt alienated in a society that refused to see them. Through dreadlocks, sound systems, and reggae, they built a counterculture rooted in pride and self-awareness. The Rasta gatherings of the 1970s and 1980s were not just spiritual assemblies, but schools of consciousness spaces where the teachings of Garvey and Selassie were passed down like sacred scripture. Today, the movement remains a cultural backbone within British multiculturalism, inspiring art, politics, and social reform. The Rasta of Britain continues to stand against injustice with quiet dignity, declaring that righteousness must prevail where Babylon still breathes. Across the Atlantic, the United States carries its own version of the Rastafarian story. In the urban streets of New York, Washington, and Los Angeles, Rastafari became intertwined with the African American fight for equality and expression. The movement's philosophy found harmony with the spirit of the civil rights era and later became part of hip-hop's moral backbone. The Rastaman in America often stood at the crossroads between culture and activism, blending spiritual conviction with social awareness. Reggae festivals, Rasta, temples, and community gatherings turned into sanctuaries of identity, teaching that liberation is not merely the absence of chains, but the presence of truth. For Black Americans facing systemic oppression, the message of Zion offered mental and emotional redemption. Rastafari here speaks not only to Africa's sons, but to all who seek justice in a land of contradictions. Across the Caribbean islands beyond Jamaica, the roots run deep and diverse. In Trinidad and Tobago, Rastafarian elders mix cultural memory with political reasoning, teaching the youth that unity and spirituality must walk together. The hills of Paramin and the beaches of Maracas echo with drumbeats of freedom and idol gatherings. In St. Lucia, small but dedicated Rasta communities preserve self-reliance through farming, herbal healing, and community upliftment. Barbados, with its strong ties to Western diplomacy, carries a quieter flame, yet within its art, poetry, and consciousness movements, Rastafari still whispers of moral awakening. Across these islands, the Rasta movement continues to nurture resilience, teaching that the Caribbean's power lies not in politics, but in collective moral strength. In Africa beyond Ethiopia, the revival continues. In Kenya, young Rastafarians embrace reggae not only as music, but as a message of peace, unity, and African pride. From Nairobi to Kisumu, they gather to reason, chant, and promote awareness through art and education. Rastafari here has become a bridge between generations, reminding youth that Africa's liberation begins within its own mind. In Ghana, the movement blends with Pan-Africanism, speaking directly to issues of development, corruption, and spiritual renewal. Rasta elders and artists lead discussions on self-governance and African self-worth, echoing Garvey's dream of continental pride. These African Rastafarians see themselves not as followers of a foreign movement, but as inheritors of an African-born faith, calling the continent back to consciousness. Beyond these centers, Rastafari thrives quietly in unexpected places in Costa Rica's Limon province, where Afro-descendants keep the fire of faith through music and agriculture. In Nigeria's Lagos, where reggae fuses with street activism and social reform, and in Canada's Toronto, where multicultural Rastas carry the message of one love into protests and community work. Across continents and languages, the chant remains the same: justice, truth, and liberation. Rastafari is not an institution, but a revelation. It lives not in temples, but in the conscience of those who refuse to be enslaved by the material world. It teaches that the true empire to be conquered is the empire within the ego, the greed, the fear that chains humanity to Babylon. The Rasta man walks through nations but belongs to none, for his nation is divine. His faith is his weapon, his livity, his testimony, and his mission eternal to awaken the world, to love, to truth, and to righteousness. From Addis Ababa to Kingston, from Bahia to Brixton, from Accra to New York, the message carries the same fire. Babylon will fade, but Zion endures. Rastafari stands as the voice of the oppressed and the conscience of the free. It is not a movement of rebellion alone, but of realization that beneath every skin, beyond every border, the Most High dwells, and in that truth, all men are equal. Now you've seen how Rastafari transformed continents into living temples of freedom and faith. Which country do you feel carries the purest vibration of Zion today? Share your reasoning in the comments and join the movement. Keep walking this road of roots, revelation, and redemption. The story continues in the next chapter of Rastafari history.